Normandy, June 1944. A German infantryman steps into a shattered American foxhole somewhere west of the beachhead. Shell casings litter the mud. Equipment has been abandoned in haste. And there, half buried under a canvas strap and a broken ammunition belt, lies one of the most recognizable weapons of the war, a Thompson submachine gun, the Tommy gun. He picks it up. The weight is immediate. Solid steel, American walnut, close-range devastation packed into a single frame. He finds a magazine, locks it into place, pulls the bolt, and fires a short burst into the hedgerow. The gun roars, but within minutes, the truth announces itself. Capturing the Tommy gun is easy. Keeping it alive inside a German squad is something else entirely. The story of the Thompson begins not in Normandy, but decades earlier, in the mind of a man who believed the battlefield could be changed by a single idea. The Thompson submachine gun was invented and developed by Brigadier General John T. Thompson, a United States Army officer, in 1918. It was designed to break the stalemate of trench warfare of World War I, although early models did not arrive in time for actual combat. Thompson had spent his career watching infantry absorb catastrophic losses advancing into machine gun fire. The solution, he believed, was to put automatic fire into the hands of a single soldier. Not a crew-served weapon bolted to a tripod. Not a cumbersome rifle with a bayonet the length of a man's arm. Something compact. Something devastating. Something a soldier could carry at the hip and use to sweep a trench clean in seconds. Thompson and his team determined the .45-inch automatic Colt pistol cartridge used in the Colt MA-1911 semi-automatic pistol provided the most suitable rounds for the automatic weapon they envisioned. The choice was deliberate. The .45 ACP was already the standard American sidearm round, a slow, heavy bullet with tremendous energy at close range. It did not need to reach across a 500-yard battlefield. It needed to end a fight in a hallway, a trench, a bunker. And the Thompson delivered that with authority. With the financial backing of Thomas Ryan, the Auto Ordnance Company was founded in 1916. The prototypes went through several iterations. Thompson formed a commercial entity to develop and market such a gun. But the war ended before a prototype could be completed. In 1920, Thompson's company, Auto Ordnance Corp., had a prototype ready, but the firm had no mass production facilities. An agreement was reached with Colt to manufacture 15,000 of the new guns. The new gun, designated the Model of 1921, was introduced in 1921. But the timing was wrong. The Great War was over. The appetite for new weapons had evaporated. The Army was shrinking, not expanding. Up to the beginning of World War II, the total Thompsons bought by the U.S. Army totaled less than 400. 400 for the entire United States military. The Thompson, one of the most capable close combat weapons ever conceived, sat largely unwanted in warehouses and catalogs. It found its way instead into darker hands. Because it was so widely used by criminals, the Thompson became notorious during the Prohibition era as the signature weapon of various organized crime syndicates in the United States in the 1920s. The gun that had been designed to clear German trenches was clearing speakeasies. The Tommy gun earned its nickname not from soldiers, but from gangsters. Then the world caught fire again. With the war came large orders and production became a problem. In the fall of 1939, the French ordered 3,750 Model 1928 guns and 30 million rounds of ammunition. Britain was next. Then the United States itself, suddenly desperate, for every submachine gun it could produce. For World War II, approximately 1,700,000 Thompson submachine guns were produced by Auto Ordnance and Savage Arms, with 1,387,134 being the simplified World War II M1 and M1A1 variants. Production surged from a trickle to a torrent. The simplified wartime version, the M1A1, stripped away the earlier model's complexity. During World War II, the M1A1 was introduced to meet the military's demand for a cost-effective, streamlined design. Unlike earlier versions such as the M1928, the M1A1 eliminated the Blish locking system and reduced production complexity, featuring a fixed rear sight and non-ribbed barrel. These changes enhanced durability and efficiency, making it a staple firearm for U.S. troops in World War II. The Thompson was most popular among specialized troops such as Rangers, Marine Raiders, armored and parachute units. It became somewhat of a status symbol and was eagerly sought after. Sergeants carried it, platoon leaders carried it, paratroopers slept with it strapped across their chests. The Thompson was not just a weapon. It was an identity, a promise, a way of saying that whoever held it intended to get close and finish the job. It weighed almost 10 pounds, 4.5 kilograms, empty, and fired .45 caliber ammunition. Heavy, yes. No one denied that. One of the most frequent gripes was its weight, more than 10 pounds, heavier than the M1 Garand. Men on long marches cursed it. Men who carried it up mountains or through hedgerow country felt every ounce. But when the world narrowed to a doorway or a trench or a shell crater with figures moving in the dark, that weight became a gift. It absorbed recoil. It held steady. It turned a burst of automatic fire into something a man could aim. And it was in those moments, in those close, savage seconds of combat, that the Thompson earned everything its reputation promised. In American hands, fed by American supply chains and American ammunition depots, the Tommy gun was a weapon without peer at. Close range, a system, a philosophy of violence condensed into blued steel and walnut. But a weapon is only as powerful as the system that sustains it. And that truth was about to matter more than anyone expected. Subscribe if you want more hidden World War II histories told carefully. By the summer of 1944, the Thompson's reputation preceded it across every battlefield in Europe. German soldiers did not need intelligence briefings to know about the Tommy gun. They had heard it. That distinctive, heavy, hammering sound was unlike anything in the German small arms inventory. The MP-40 fired its 9mm rounds at a measured, almost deliberate pace. The Thompson roared. Its cyclic rate was faster, its report deeper, its impact unmistakable. A German soldier crouching behind rubble in a Norman village or dug into a hedgerow position did not need to see the weapon to know it was being used against him. He could hear it. British commandos and USG is in Europe. Both liked the Thompson for its rugged dependability and knockdown firepower, and it was certainly in the fighting across Europe that the Thompson excelled. It worked best in a temperate climate, and proved its worth many times over in the house-to-house combat of Italy and northwestern Europe. The .45. A CP round was a different kind of threat than the 9mm Parabellum. It was slower, heavier, and wider. At distance, it fell off quickly, lacking the flat trajectory of a rifle cartridge. But at close range, inside a room, inside a trench, inside the tangled wreckage of a bombed-out building, it hit with a force that few soldiers could describe calmly after the fact. The M1A1. Thompson is chambered in .45 ACP, a cartridge renowned for its stopping power and effectiveness in close-quarters combat. The bullet did not pierce. It struck. It transferred its energy in a single, brutal instant. Men who were hit by a .45 ACP round at 20 yards did not stumble. They dropped. German soldiers knew this. Word traveled fast in any army, and the Germans on the Western Front had been fighting American and British units equipped with Thompsons since North Africa and Sicily. The Thompson was used in World War II in the hands of Allied troops as a weapon for scouts, non-commissioned officers and patrol, leaders, as well as commissioned officers, tank crewmen, and soldiers performing raids on German positions. In the European theater, the gun was widely utilized in British and Canadian commando units, as well as in the U.S. Army paratrooper and ranger battalions, where it was issued more frequently than in line infantry units. Commando raids, night patrols, close-range ambushes along sunken roads. In each of these, the Thompson appeared, and in each, the results were devastating. Soldiers quickly developed effective fire tactics to use their M1A1s to maximum effect. For example, soldiers armed with the semi-automatic M1 Garand rifle were often placed on point, with Thompson-armed men behind, more M1s following, and an M1 carbine in the rear. The Thompson was not an isolated weapon. It was part of a system. A squad arranged itself around the Thompson the way a body arranges itself around a heart. The point man identified the threat. The Thompson man killed it. Among the hedgerows of Normandy, where every field was a fortress and every sunken lane an ambush corridor, this arrangement paid for itself again and again. Firefights erupted at ranges measured in yards, not hundreds of yards. A rifleman with a bolt-action carabiner 98K could fire 5 aimed shots and reload. A Thompson man could empty a 30-round magazine in the time it took a rifleman to cycle a second round. In that disparity lay the terror. And yet, for all its fearsome reputation, the Thompson carried a vulnerability that no German soldier holding it could see. It was invisible. It was buried inside the brass casing of every cartridge. And it had nothing to do with the weapon's design. It had everything to do with what fed it. War leaves things behind. Every battle, every bombardment, every panicked withdrawal scatters the evidence of fighting across the ground. Rifles dropped in mid-stride. Ammunition belts dragged through mud and abandoned. Helmets sitting upright in shell craters, as if their owners had simply evaporated. Machine gun positions half buried under collapsed sandbags, the barrels still pointed at nothing. And weapons, always weapons, lying in ditches, tangled in wire, resting against the walls of shattered farmhouses. In Normandy, the scale of this debris was staggering. The Bocage country consumed men and equipment at a rate that even seasoned commanders found difficult to comprehend. American infantry companies that entered the hedgerows at full strength emerged days later with half their men gone. Positions changed hands multiple times in a single afternoon. What was American ground at noon might be German ground by dusk, and American ground again by midnight. And each time, a position changed hands, whatever had been left behind became available to whoever arrived next. German troops advancing through recently captured American positions would find the landscape littered with discarded or abandoned equipment. M1 Garand rifles with their bolts locked open, the last clip ejected. Browning automatic rifles still warm. Carbines, pistols, grenades. And sometimes lying among the wreckage, a Thompson. Perhaps its owner had been killed. Perhaps he had been wounded and dragged away by medics. Perhaps the position had been overrun so quickly that the weapon was left in the foxhole, magazines scattered in the dirt beside it. A German Feldwebel stepping into such a position would recognize the Thompson immediately. Its silhouette was distinctive: the square receiver, the wooden stock with its pronounced drop, the heavy barrel. Even soldiers who had never handled one had seen it in photographs, in intelligence manuals, in the hands of dead or captured Americans. The temptation to pick it up was real, and the reasons were sound, at least in the moment. German infantry in Normandy were not lavishly equipped. The standard German squad had one machine gun, the MG-42, and the rest of the squad carried carabiner 98K bolt-action rifles. Only the squad leader typically carried an MP-40. Any additional automatic weapon was a significant increase in firepower. A Thompson lying in a captured foxhole, with magazines still in a canvas pouch beside it, represented an immediate and tangible advantage. What it also represented, though its new owner did not yet know it, was a countdown. Every magazine loaded, every burst fired. The clock was already ticking, and the clock ran on 45 ACP. A German soldier who picked up a Thompson in the summer of 1944 was not encountering a mystery. Submachine guns were central to German tactical doctrine. The MP-38 and MP-40 had been in service since the beginning of the war, carried by squad leaders, paratroopers, and armored vehicle crews. The MP-40 was originally issued to German infantry leaders, paratroopers, and armored vehicle crews who would find carrying a full-sized rifle impractical. Any German NCO understood the basic concept: a compact automatic weapon firing pistol-caliber ammunition at close range. The Thompson operated on the same principle. The controls were intuitive. The magazine release was obvious. The charging handle was accessible. The safety and fire selector required only a brief examination. A competent soldier could figure out the Thompson in minutes, not hours. Insert the magazine, pull the bolt, aim, fire. The weapon was, in its fundamental operation, no more complicated than the MP-40. The German soldier already knew, and in some respects, it was noticeably superior. The recoil is impressively manageable, even for a high-caliber round, like the .45 ACP. The gun's substantial weight and steel build absorb much of the kick, allowing for controlled bursts in full auto mode. The Thompson's weight, which American soldiers cursed on long marches, became an asset the moment the trigger was pulled. 10.5 pounds of steel and walnut soaked up the recoil of the .45 ACP cartridge. Bursts were controllable. Accuracy at combat ranges was excellent for a submachine gun. The build quality was also unmistakable. Mechanically, the M1A1 operates on a simple blowback action, utilizing a fixed firing pin and a heavy bolt. This design increases reliability under harsh conditions while reducing the complexity and cost of production. The receiver was milled from solid steel, not stamped from sheet metal like the MP-40. The stock was genuine American walnut. The weapon felt substantial, in a way that even the well-designed MP-40 did not. It felt overbuilt. It felt permanent. A German soldier holding a captured Thompson for the first time might well have felt a flush of battlefield luck, a prize, a weapon with a reputation for devastating close-range performance, and he now possessed one. In the chaos of hedgerow fighting, where engagements happened at arm's length, this seemed like the finest thing a soldier could scavenge. But warfare is not a collection of single moments. It is a chain. And every link in that chain must hold. The Thompson was brilliant as a weapon, as a captured weapon. Inside a German unit, it was something else entirely. And the first link in that chain was about to snap. The problem did not reveal itself immediately. It revealed itself when the first magazine ran empty. A 30-round box magazine, fired in automatic bursts at a cyclic rate of 600 or 700 rounds per minute, does not last long. In a hedgerow firefight, a Thompson could burn through a full magazine in seconds. In a sustained engagement, 2 or 3 magazines might be gone in under a minute. And when the last round was spent and the bolt locked back on an empty chamber, the German soldier holding the Thompson confronted a reality that no amount of battlefield enthusiasm could overcome. The Thompson fires .45 ACP ammunition. The M1A1 Thompson is chambered in .45 ACP, a cartridge renowned for its stopping power and effectiveness in close quarters combat. That is 11.43 by 23 millimeters. A fat, stubby, rimless cartridge originally designed for the Colt M1911 pistol. It was the standard American pistol and submachine gun round. Every American unit in Europe carried it. every American supply depot stocked it. It was as common in the American logistics chain as bread and gasoline. But it was not German. The German standard submachine gun cartridge was the 9x19mm Parabellum. It was the round fired by the MP-38, the MP-40, the Luger P-08, the Walther P-38, and virtually every other German pistol and submachine gun in the field. 9mm Parabellum was always available. It arrived in crates on trucks. It was distributed at the squad level. Every MP-40 magazine pouch contained it. Every pistol holster on every officer's belt guaranteed a small reserve of it. The 9mm Parabellum was woven into the fabric of German logistics so thoroughly that a soldier almost never had to think about it. The .45 ACP existed nowhere in that fabric. A German soldier could not walk to his squad's ammunition bearer and ask for .45 ACP. He could not request it from his platoon leader. He could not find it in a German supply dump, or a German ammunition crate, or a German resupply convoy. The round simply did not exist in the German system. It was as foreign as the language stamped on the Thompson's receiver. And the two rounds were not interchangeable. They were not even close. The .45 ACP is wider and shorter. The 9mm Parabellum is narrower and longer. They cannot be loaded into each other's magazines. They cannot be fired from each other's weapons. They are as incompatible as diesel and gasoline. The difference is absolute. This meant that a German soldier who had captured a Thompson was carrying a weapon powered entirely by whatever American ammunition he had found with it. 2 magazines? Maybe 3? Maybe a loose box of cartridges stuffed into a dead man's pack. That was his supply. That was all he had. And the moment it was gone, the Thompson was finished. Logistics wins wars. Soldiers know this instinctively, even if they do not articulate it in those terms. A German infantryman in Normandy did not think about supply chains in the abstract. He thought about whether his magazine was full. He thought about whether the ammunition bearer in his squad was still alive and still carrying the boxes. He thought about whether the truck that was supposed to arrive at dusk would actually arrive, or whether it had been destroyed by a fighter bomber somewhere on a road behind the lines. The German small arms supply system in 1944 was built around a finite number of calibers. The 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser for rifles and machine guns. The 9 by 19 mm Parabellum for pistols and submachine guns. Later in the war, the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz for the Sturmgewehr 44. These were the arteries of German infantry combat. Every resupply effort, every ammunition distribution, every logistics plan revolved around getting these specific rounds to the men who needed them. The .45 ACP existed entirely outside this system. There was no German factory producing it. There was no warehouse storing it. There was no crate marked with its designation, no crate marked with its designation waiting on a depot shelf. When a German soldier fired his last captured .45 round, there was no mechanism, none at all, for getting more. They were only in local use. The ammunition supply was bad. This was the clinical assessment. The reality on the ground was harsher. A soldier carrying a captured Thompson was carrying a weapon with a lifespan measured in firefights, not campaigns. 1 engagement, maybe 2. After that, the weight on his shoulder was dead weight. Standard ammunition load for German soldiers issued the MP-40 was 732-round magazines. That was 224 rounds. A full day's combat supply, sometimes more. A German squad leader could burn through a magazine and reach for another with confidence, knowing that the same 9mm Parabellum in his pouch was the same 9mm Parabellum in the crate that would arrive tomorrow. The system sustained him. The system kept his weapon alive. The Thompson had no such system. It was an orphan in the German order of battle, a weapon without parents, without relatives, without any connection to the organism that kept German infantry fighting. And in a war defined by consumption, by the relentless burning of materiel, a weapon disconnected from its supply chain was a weapon with an expiration date. Some German soldiers understood this immediately and left captured Thompsons where they found them. Others, seduced by the gun's reputation and immediate firepower, picked it up and carried it anyway. But the mathematics were unforgiving. Every burst shortened the weapon's useful life. Every spent casing was a casing that could not be replaced. The Thompson was bleeding out one round at a time, and there was no tourniquet in the German supply system to stop it. The ammunition problem was only the first barrier. The second was the magazine. The Thompson M1A1 fed from detachable box magazines. The M1A1 is typically equipped with stick magazines holding 20 or 30 rounds. Unlike earlier Thompson models, the M1A1 does not support drum magazines, simplifying logistics for military use. These were stamped steel boxes, purpose-built for the Thompson, designed to hold .45A CP cartridges in a staggered column and feed them upward into the receiver. They were robust, reliable, and completely unique to the Thompson. An MP40 magazine would not fit a Thompson. The physical dimensions were wrong. The feed lips were different. The cartridge geometry was incompatible. Even if a German soldier had unlimited .45 ACP ammunition, he could not use it without Thompson-specific magazines to feed it through. The weapon required its own magazines the way a body requires its own blood type. This created a secondary scarcity problem. A German soldier who captured a Thompson might find 1 or 2 magazines with it, perhaps a canvas pouch with 3. On a very fortunate day, he might recover a full American magazine carrier with 5 or 6 loaded magazines. But those magazines were now irreplaceable assets. If one was lost, damaged, bent, or its feed lips were crushed by a careless boot in the dark, that magazine was gone. There was no German armorer who stocked Thompson magazines. There was no supply requisition form for them. They were artifacts from another army's war. And the magazines wore out, springs weakened, feed lips bent, stamped steel corroded in the damp Norman summer. An American soldier carrying a Thompson could draw a fresh magazine from supply. A German soldier carrying a captured Thompson could not. He was working with a closed inventory, a set of magazines that would only shrink, never grow. The Thompson magazine became, in German hands, a consumable. Not in the way ammunition was consumable, spent and gone after a single burst, but in a slower, more insidious way. A magazine that jammed once might be cleared and reused. A magazine that jammed repeatedly was discarded. And each discarded magazine brought the Thompson one step closer to silence. This was the double lock on the Thompson's usefulness in German service. The ammunition was unavailable. The magazines were irreplaceable. Together, they created a barrier that no amount of admiration for the weapon's design could overcome. The German military was not naive about captured weapons. It had, in fact, one of the most comprehensive systems in the world for cataloging and incorporating foreign arms. Before the war began, the German Armed Forces Heereswaffenamt compiled a list of known foreign equipment and assigned a unique number to each weapon. These weapons were called Fremdgerät or Beutegerät, meaning foreign device, or captured device, and their technical details were recorded in a 14-volume set that was periodically updated. The Germans also captured large amounts of foreign equipment during World War II, for example, over 11 million rifles by the end of 1944, that they tested and cataloged using the same system, 11 million rifles. The scale of captured equipment flowing through German depots was extraordinary. Weapons arrived from every conquered nation: Czech rifles, Polish pistols, French machine guns, Soviet submachine guns, Belgian carbines, Norwegian revolvers. Each was examined, tested, measured, and assigned a formal German designation under the Fremdgerät system. The Germans sometimes referred to these weapons as Kriegsbeute, meaning war booty, and the Fremdgerät numbers are sometimes referred to as Beutenummern, meaning booty numbers. The system was methodical and thorough. Each designation followed a standard format, the German weapon type abbreviation, a unique identification number, and a country of origin code in parentheses. The Thompson was no exception. The Germans captured some French, Yugoslav, and English Thompsons in the first years of the war, and some American Thompsons at the end of the war. The name was 11.43 mm MP760 F, J, E, or A. The letter codes identified the source. French captured Thompsons were designated with an F, Yugoslav with a J, English with an E, American with an A. Variants received sub-designations. The system was nothing if not precise. This bureaucratic recognition gave the Thompson a place in the German filing cabinet. It was officially acknowledged, officially measured, officially described. A German officer consulting the Fremdgerät volumes could find the Thompson's caliber, weight, rate of fire, and magazine specifications laid out in clean German text. But filing a weapon is not the same as supplying it. Recognizing a weapon is not the same as sustaining it. The Fremdgerät system could catalog the Thompson with perfect administrative clarity. What it could not do was produce .45 ACP ammunition, manufacture Thompson magazines, or integrate the weapon into a supply chain built entirely around 9mm Parabellum and 7.92 mm Mauser. The SS made use of captured Thompsons, primarily in Norway. Since the Norwegian Army's pre-war standard pistol was the Model 1914 variant of the Colt 1911 in .45 ACP, ammunition was not a problem. This was the exception, not the rule. In Norway, the alignment of calibers was a geographic accident. Norwegian armories already held .45 ACP because their service pistol used it. This gave German occupation forces in Norway a local supply source that existed nowhere else on the German-controlled map. It was a fluke, a curiosity, and it highlighted, by contrast, just how dependent a captured weapon was on finding its own ammunition in enemy territory. Everywhere else, the Thompson designation in the Fremdgerät system was a label on an empty shelf. The weapon existed. The supply did not. There is a difference between possessing a weapon and operating a weapon. The distinction is everything in war. A German unit that captured a Thompson possessed it the moment a soldier lifted it from the mud. But operating it, keeping it in sustained combat use, required something the unit could not provide. It required an entire logistical ecosystem that lived exclusively on the American side of the front line. The Thompson needed .45 ACP ammunition. That ammunition was manufactured in American factories, shipped across the Atlantic, distributed through American supply depots in England, loaded onto landing craft, carried across the Channel, and trucked to American forward dumps. It arrived at the squad level through an unbroken chain of logistics that stretched from factory floor to foxhole. Every link in that chain was American. Every warehouse, every truck, every ammunition bearer carrying a box through the rain belonged to the United States Army. A German soldier had no access to any part of that chain. He stood on the other side of the front line, which was also the other side of the supply line. The .45 ACP cartridges in his captured magazines were the only bridge between his weapon and the system that manufactured its ammunition. And that bridge was burning with every trigger pull. Spare parts were equally unavailable. A Thompson's extractor could break, its firing pin could wear, its recoil spring could weaken. The most common components in this gun to fail are the rather thin magazines and the extractors, which are known to snap. In American service, den Herr Rauamrajmalius Sarbismare, A damaged Thompson was taken to a unit armorer who had access to spare parts inventories maintained by the Ordnance Department. In German service, a damaged Thompson was simply a damaged Thompson. No German armorer carried Thompson parts. No German workshop had the specifications to fabricate them. The weapon was a closed system, sealed by its own uniqueness. This was not a problem unique to the Thompson. Every captured weapon faced some version of it, but the Thompson's particular combination of non-standard caliber, unique magazines, and American-only parts made the problem especially acute. A captured MP-40 in British hands could be fed with the same 9mm parabellum used in the Sten gun. The Sten used the same 9mm ammunition as German weapons, which was convenient in combat situations where captured ammo could be used. A captured Sten in German hands fired the same round as the MP-40. Nazi Germany used some captured Stens during World War II under the designations MP-748E for the Mark I to MP-751E for the Mark V. These weapons could cross the line and keep fighting because the cartridge in their chambers was the same cartridge used by the army that captured them. The Thompson could not. The .45 ACP was an American island in a European sea of 9mm. The weapon carried its own logistical border inside every round it fired, and that border was impassable. For a short time, though, the Thompson could still kill. A German soldier who captured a Thompson with 3 full 30-round magazines had 90 rounds. At a controlled rate of fire, using short bursts, he might sustain the weapon through one significant engagement, perhaps 2 if he was disciplined and the engagements were brief. In those moments, the Thompson delivered everything its reputation promised. The heavy .45 caliber rounds hit harder than 9mm parabellum at close range. The weapon's weight absorbed recoil and allowed accurate automatic fire. In the hedgerows, in the rubble, in the close-quarter chaos of Normandy's bocage country, a Thompson was a fearsome instrument. The high rate of fire offered by the little machine gun and man-stopping qualities inherent in the .45 ACP slug proved a godsend to troops in close quarters, though this was offset to an extent by the weapon's heavy weight and unique ammunition. Unique ammunition, there it was. Even in descriptions of the Thompson's combat excellence, the qualification always followed. The gun was devastating, but its ammunition set it apart. In American hands, that uniqueness was managed by the American supply system. In German hands, it was a death sentence for the weapon's usefulness. The German soldier who emptied his last Thompson magazine faced a choice. He could sling the weapon and hope to capture more American ammunition in a future engagement. This was a gamble dependent on overrunning another American position and finding not just loose rounds, but loaded magazines compatible with his specific weapon. The odds were poor. American positions that had been overrun were often stripped quickly by other German soldiers or destroyed by American counter-battery fire. Or he could abandon the Thompson, drop the 10.5-pound weight from his already overburdened body, pick up a Carabiner 98K from a fallen comrade, or reclaim his issued MP-40 from wherever he had stashed it. Return to the German ammunition ecosystem, where every round in every pouch on every soldier's belt was a round his weapon could fire. Most chose the latter, not because the Thompson was a bad weapon. It was an extraordinary weapon, but a weapon without ammunition is a club, and the Thompson was a very heavy club. In the brutal arithmetic of infantry combat, where every kilogram matters and every round counts, carrying a silent Thompson was worse than carrying no Thompson at all. The captured Tommy gun's life cycle was almost always the same: discovery, excitement, a burst or two of devastating fire, then silence, then abandonment. The weapon returned to the mud from which it had been lifted, waiting for the next soldier, American or German, to find it. And the cycle sometimes began again. In the end, the Thompson's greatest defense was not a feature anyone had designed into it. It was not a lock. It was not a self-destruct mechanism. It was not a manual printed in impenetrable code. It was not a booby trap or a secret switch or a failsafe built into the receiver. The Thompson's defense was simpler than any of those things. It was caliber. The .45 ACP cartridge was the invisible wall around the Thompson. It was the moat the enemy could not cross. Every Thompson that crossed the front line carried its own limitation inside the magazine well. The German army could capture the gun. It could fire the gun. It could admire the gun. It could photograph the gun, catalog the gun, assign the gun an official number in a 14-volume reference set maintained by the Heereswaffenamt. But it could not feed the gun. And a gun that cannot be fed is a gun that is already dying. It was a simple design based on blowback operation from an open bolt, and it fired 9 by 19 millimeter parabellum, meaning it could be used with captured German ammunition. That was the Sten. The British had designed their primary submachine gun around the enemy's ammunition. It was a deliberate choice, born from the desperate logic of a nation that had lost most of its weapons at Dunkirk and needed to arm resistance fighters across occupied Europe with guns that could feed on captured German stocks. The Sten offered the additional advantage of firing the same 9mm parabellum bullets the Germans used, so resistance fighters could supplement their own precious supply of bullets with ammunition captured from the enemy. The Americans had made a different choice. The .45 ACP was already their standard pistol round. It shared logistics with the M1911 pistol, with the M3 grease gun, with the entire American sidearm ecosystem. Inside that ecosystem, the Thompson was brilliantly supported. Outside it, the Thompson was alone. And that aloneness was, paradoxically, a form of protection. Not intentional protection, not designed protection, but real protection, measured in the number of captured Thompsons that fired a few bursts and then fell silent forever. The caliber created a logistical quarantine. The weapon could travel across the front line. Its supply chain could not. There is a quiet lesson in this, one that extends far beyond the hedgerows of Normandy. In war, the weapon everyone sees is the gun. The weapon no one sees is the system. The factories, the ships, the trucks, the crates, the ammunition bearers trudging through the rain with wooden boxes on their shoulders, the depots and the railheads and the loading docks and the accounting clerks who tracked every cartridge from production line to foxhole. That system was invisible, and it was invincible. No German soldier could capture it. No German designation could contain it. It existed on the American side of the war, vast and unreachable. And every Thompson that left it became a clock counting down to zero. The Tommy gun was one of the finest close combat weapons of the Second World War. In American hands, fed by American logistics, sustained by American industry, it was devastating. In German hands, it was a brief, bright flame, powerful, undeniable, and temporary. The last captured box of .45 ACP was always the last word, and when it was gone, the Thompson's war was over. Not because the weapon had failed, but because the system that gave it life had never crossed the line. That was the hidden defense. Not steel, not engineering, not secrecy, caliber. The smallest detail, the most absolute barrier. A brass cartridge, 11.5 millimeters wide, carrying inside it the reason no enemy could ever truly make the Tommy gun their own.